at some point, we're going to finally get into the Diamond arc here, into the Diamond Kingdom, and see really like in full events of how things are going to go. Because that story arc is obviously set up. We know characters involved in that. We know what's going on behind their scenes to a degree. And one of the guys from there that, and he's not nearly as set up as important, but I still want to see how he is and like what his role in it, because he doesn't come off as a bad guy. Like early Black Clover villains, the first chunk until we got to about Raditz, the villains, like the enemies rather, weren't anything really to stand out. Lotus, I did like that he didn't come off in any way as a bad guy. He didn't seem evil. He just kind of seemed like, oh yeah, I'm on a different side than you guys, because he was one, he didn't really fight for any like really malefic reasons. He was just kind of doing his job in order to provide for his family, because he's got three daughters. He seemed kind of a little bit relaxed and a lot more chill. He was much more tactical, and he kind of pretty cowardly, versus like you looked at someone like Mars. Mars's crazy level that he displayed early on that we had to deal with. But for Lotus, his character that kind of like intrigues me is he seems like the person that will in fact either have that undying conviction to the Diamond Kingdom, or he'll have that kind of like logical, I know what kind of position I'm in. I know what I need to do. When we get to the part, once the series kind of delves further in the Diamond Kingdom, because we know that they're not okay. They're not like in some good kind of status, and not just from the fact, obviously, like what we know, they're running lower on minerals and supplies, and that's obviously hurting them as a country. And then they have like a bunch of horrible experiments going on, like what child experiments with Morris, and that eventually is going to be something that snaps their kingdom, and things are going to get out of hand. But as of right now, there's still like a functioning militaristic empire. And Lotus, the thing about Lotus is, in that whole arc, he obviously wasn't some brave villain. He wasn't some like big heavy contender. Like when we saw him really go up against Luck, he used like the defeat of all the nameless, faceless lackeys in his group, while Luck was beating up on them, to lay out a thin layer of smoke that he couldn't see. That was just dampens all his physical capabilities and whatnot, and weakened him. He was playing much more of like, well, these guys are gonna lose, so I need to use that opportunity and use their defeat in order to win the situation. He wasn't above doing shady, sneaky ways to win, which was cool. And they weren't really like vicious, vile. He was just kind of like trying to do the least effort while still honing the most effective win that he could. And like I said, like, he used like the enemy or the his allies, as setup material. But at the same time, when it came to leaving the dungeon, he ended up bringing it with him, which I liked. Like he wasn't like some just, oh yeah, you guys are fodder, you guys can die and it won't matter for me as long as I live. It was like, well, anybody I can, I'm gonna save. Like we know he saved a bunch of the kind of just the random guys that were that were knocked out. He saved Mars, who was pretty much left for dead at that point. He's not like a bad guy. He's not like evil. He's just kind of like I just want to go with shady. I think that's really the best really kind of term to use towards Lotus. And I was really sad because I was looking for panels of him, and I remember he's in the dungeon arc, and then he's very briefly in the little invasion arc right before the Witch's Forest story. But he has like nothing he does in that whole bit other than get like slightly attacked by Yami and then just be like, fuck this, I'm out of here. I did like that early in the series we did get like a little bit of a note from him, how he got that scar on his chest because he and Yami fought when he was younger, and he was just like, yeah, that guy was really powerful, and I didn't really like that, so I just kind of ran away. Because he's absolutely not a typical fighter for Black Clover, because we have, for the most part, they have casters. They have much more of like more ranged wizard kind of stuff. Then there's some that are more hand to hand, more melee range, combat style. Uh, but for him, he's all about devious like sneakiness. He's much more of, I guess, closer to like a magic assassin in a way. Not because in reality, you put him in a situation where he's going to take his opponent down. We already saw like his moves are all based around like messing with their vision, their positioning, getting them to them without them realizing it. But he just comes off as like a pretty likable guy. Not just from personality wise, he's just fun. But I'm intrigued to see what his role is going to be in the Diamond Kingdom arc when we get to it. Because, like I said, for him, he doesn't seem to be fighting like, oh, for the Diamond Kingdom, love for his kingdom. He probably knows they're messed up. He's probably like dealing with it because he knows, like, even though the kingdom itself is in a pretty shaky spot. If you assume that he knows like the extent, he seems pretty smart. He seems like he would be on the up and up in that. But he's obviously more concerned about providing for his family more than anything else. So for Lotus, like his character, because when you look at like the ones that we know from the Diamond Kingdom, we have like Mars and Fauna. Okay, yeah, Mars and Ludros both got fixed because their minds were being messed up by the augmentation stones that are put on the diamond like enhancement piece. And once broken, it was able to kind of fix their mind and able to help them a lot and kind of get them back on track. Lotus is not controlled at all, and he still seems pretty chill. So, like, when we get to some of these guys who are going to be fixed, and maybe they'll end up being more towards helping the Clover, or they'll be more towards staying with the Diamond. But when you have someone already who's just like, it doesn't matter really for him, probably, of whether or not like the Diamond is doing the right thing. It's really like what he's doing all this for, trying to provide for him, for his family. That I like that aspect of him because it gives him much more of a less of a. I know I put him for villain, but it really is just antagonist. And I just thought it was, even if it was set for the villain role, I liked the idea of him being much more of a leaning towards this character. You can only look at him as a villain if you look at him from one side of the story, but not his side. But he ended up doing a lot for the Diamond because, like, in the end of it. You had Mars, who Mars failed at bringing back. I mean, in reality, they probably gave Mars a credit, so he didn't have to like rest. So Lotus didn't have to like rank up and take all that. But I'm gonna guess. But then Ludros didn't. They didn't accomplish their mission, go to the Witch's Forest. But so far, what we saw, like going into the dungeon, it was because of Lotus that they left with so much loot because he used his smoke during the whole fight with Mars and Asta's team. He turned invisible, went and stole a bunch of stuff, and then, set up for his escape, saved all the crew members that he could, and then it's like, all right, bye. And it just left. So, he himself, intriguing. He's an interesting character. I'd like to see more of him. He's kind of like the position with Fonzel, where he's a very intriguing background character. You're like, I really wish this guy would show up more, but I don't require it. I would be happy with it. I mean, his character, like, I don't. Well, once we get to the Diamond Kingdom arc, I feel like he will be relevant, but I'd be perfectly fine if he just kind of like pokes his head in every once in a while, like that arc, and just kind of does stuff. But then in reality, he's like, anything serious? Nope, I'm out of here. You guys need to sneak into somewhere? Alright, I'm your guy. But other than that, I'm not participating. But anyway, tell me what you think about this guy. I wish I had more to say about him. Like, really, like when you compare his character, you really have just that couple chapters into the dungeon arc, but you get a pretty good feel of him. He's cowardly. He's much more sneaky, and he just kind of like looks for that kind of large scale goal. I mean, you really can just kind of like think for him. He's just some dad working. That's pretty much like the TLDR of him. He's not trying to be some vicious killer, but. Yeah, like I said, comment below, tell me what you think about his character, and if I get you thumbs up the video, press the like button, and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. And that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.